welcome to Web of Stories. My hair is messed up already. My name is Melinda and I am here with a non-book video. In fact, I'm going to be talking about a movie today. I am not a person who sees a lot of movies. I just don't. But this past weekend was my wedding anniversary, mine and my husband's wedding anniversary. And if you know me, you know I like Agatha Christie, and the opening of Kenneth Branagh's A Haunting in Venice just happened to fall on our anniversary, so guess how we celebrated. This is the second time I have done this video because the first time was I was totally distracted and all over, but I have taken the time to actually write an outline. So hopefully I will get everything down on there. So let me go into a little bit of my background with this Poirot franchise. A lot of people who are Agatha Christie fans do not like Kenneth Branagh as Hercule Poirot. He is very different than David Suchet, who is, I believe, rightly considered sort of the standard for Poirot portrayals. He is very good. I don't think anyone can argue that. And Kenneth Branagh's portrayal of Poirot is different. I personally don't have a problem with that. I'm okay with different portrayals. I think it's very interesting. I think different portrayals bring different parts of the character to life. So I've never had a problem with Kenneth Branagh or his mustache. That seems to be another thing that people have a problem with. I don't care. I think all the Poirot mustaches are ridiculous. So why is the fact that it's not any more ridiculous than anybody else's? There you go. So this is the third Poirot movie that Kenneth Branagh has made. Now he stars as Poirot and he also directs the movies. And I believe he did not write this one. He may have had a hand in the writing of some of the earlier ones. I'm not sure. I should have checked that. I don't know. The first one he did was Murder on the Orient Express, which makes sense because just for name recognition, that's one of the most famous Agatha Christie novels. And it's probably the most famous Poirot novel. I saw that movie before I read the book. Probably a good thing because I liked that movie and I didn't like the book. I know, very spicy opinion that I did not like Murder on the Orient Express, but I just thought it was a very dull book to read. Although I also recognized that even though it's a dull book, there's lots of room for actors to make their own interpretations, which is probably why it's been adapted so often, and the adaptations tend to work really well. So I liked his Kenneth Branagh's Murder on the Orient Express. I hadn't read the book, so I was not aware of, what changes he had made. The second movie he made, the second movie in this sort of franchise, was Death on the Nile. And I did read this book ahead of time. And to me, this was not as successful a movie for him for several reasons, although I still enjoyed the movie. One of the big reasons is that there's a very pivotal part in that book where, not to get too far into it because this video is not about Death on the Nile, but the main character or one of the main characters steals the man of another main character, and this one who lost the guy is like following the other one, and the one who's being followed, tells Poirot, make this woman stop. And Poirot says something, he's like, you did something bad to her, you broke her heart, I am not getting involved. And there's so much in that I think Christie used to tell why she's telling this story. And it's very important to the book. It's highlighted in the David Suchet adaptation of that work. It's completely absent from the Kenneth Branagh version. I also had some problems with the casting in that one. Kenneth Branagh makes his cast very diverse, and I like that. That was not my issue. My two issues were, and one is not its fault. This is not its fault because when this movie was filmed and when it was in cinemas, there was a very long period of time thanks to COVID. So between the time it was filmed and between the time and when it hit the theaters, we learned a lot about Armie Hammer. And Armie Hammer is like plays one of the main roles in this show. So obviously that's not it's Armie Hammer's fault. It is Armie Hammer's fault, but it was not Kenneth Branagh's fault. It was not this movie's fault. That me watching this movie, I just had icky feelings about Armie Hammer. The other thing is that he cast Jennifer Saunders and Dawn French in this movie, which is fine. I love French and Saunders. Love them. But they're not funny. Like, why would you cast like two of the funniest women in the world and then not have them be funny? I don't know. That just stuck in my craw. They also spend a lot of time in that movie on this invented backstory that doesn't match anything that is written, that Agatha Christie wrote about Poirot, which I found very disconcerting and really unnecessary, because if they wanted, there's a little bit in Poirot's backstory in the books that they could have developed to kind of get the same effect. So I still enjoy Death on the Nile, not successful. And now we come to Hallowe'en Party. Hallowe'en Party is the book upon which they say, Hallowe'en Party is the book upon which this movie is based. That is a very, very, very generous statement. Even before seeing this movie, I was like, this is like 90% original and 10% Hallowe'en Party. Now, having seen the movie, I would say it's like 98% original and 2% Hallowe'en Party. Basically, there's some characters that have the same name, and there's an apple bobbing scene in both, and that's pretty much it. It's different plots, different solutions, there are different characters, everything. There's nothing else in common between the two. Probably a good thing, because this is not one of Agatha Christie's best novels. In fact, many people consider it one of her worst. It was the second to last Poirot novel she wrote, so she wrote it very late in her life. This was published in 1969. She was an elderly woman. She was dealing with some cognitive slippage, from what I understand. This is just not a successful novel. And I think, even before seeing the movie, my thoughts were like, well, if you're going to take one of her works and go off script, you might as well do one that doesn't work as a book. And I stand by that. I think if they're going to do that. But I also kind of think, I don't think it's fair to say that Haunting in Venice is based on this book. I don't, because there's really nothing between the two. So I'm going to take this book and I'm going to put it over here, because it has nothing to do with this movie. So here's the summary of A Haunting in Venice. We are in 1947 Venice. This is, I believe, the first time they have given a specific date to a movie. Hercule Poirot is retired, and he is living in Venice, and he is tending to his marrows. For those of you who don't know what that is, which would be me before I read The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, where he talks about tending to his marrows, that's his squash. He likes to grow squash. And he's not taking any cases. And then this part of the movie, we're starting to see some parts of Poirot that we don't see in the other Kenneth Branagh movies. We see things like him being very, taking one of those little brushes that used for evidence and cleaning up around his marrows. And he goes to buy eggs and he measures his eggs. Details that we would see a lot in the David Suchet series, but we have yet to see in the Kenneth Branagh movies. So he's refusing to take any cases. He has a bodyguard who makes sure no one comes near him. And one day his bodyguard says, there's a woman who wants to see you. And he says, I don't want to see him. And he goes, she said you would say that. So he holds up an apple. Now, if you read enough Agatha Christie, Agatha Christie herself loved apples. Agatha Christie also created a character that is a stand-in for herself that she would put in books, named Ariadne Oliver. And this is where we meet Ariadne Oliver. As in the books, Ariadne Oliver here is a crime writer who has used Poirot as inspiration, and she wants him to come help her because she wants to debunk this medium who's going to be in town to hold a seance at a palazzo which has a very dark past. And she enlists Poirot's help. I almost said Branaugh's help. Poirot's help to come debunk him. And that's all I'm going to say about this. That's just the setup. That's all I'm going to say, because the rest is for you to discover. So let me tell you what I liked about this movie. Kenneth Branagh as Poirot. As I said before, I never had a problem with Kenneth Branagh as Poirot, but this is the first time that I watched one of his shows and felt like I was watching Poirot and not Kenneth Branagh as Poirot. I feel like he really kind of came into his own here, and he separated himself enough from sort of the shadow of David Suchet and still adopted enough of Poirot from the books to really make it the character his own. And I really, really appreciated that. Still, Suchet is still wonderful. I'm not saying that Kenneth Branagh is better than Suchet. He is different, but this is a Poirot. This is not Kenneth Branagh as Poirot. The next thing, the next person I'm going to mention, because a lot of this is casting, is Michelle Yeoh. So Michelle Yeoh plays the medium. That's pretty clear from the trailer if you see it. And she goes all out. Wow. I mean, I have yet to see Everything Everywhere All at Once, but from the clips I've seen, it looks like going all out is now Michelle Yeoh's new thing. She does not disappoint here. She is very creepy. It's very good. Oh, yes. She's very, very good in this show. And this was filmed before she won her Oscar. So this is not like Kenneth Branagh getting on her Oscars coattails and doing it. This was before she won they filmed this before she won her Oscar. And this just shows what a great actress she is. The third thing I liked is also another actor, and that is an actor named Jude Hill, and he plays a boy called Leopold. There is a boy in Hallowe'en Party. I can't remember if his name's Leopold or not. Not important, because they're two completely different characters. Leopold's a very interesting character, and I think it's probably a very difficult role for a child to play. I'm not going to go into detail about it, because I want you to see the movie, but I will say this child is both like one of those like adults stuck in a child's body, but also very creepy. And there's nothing better than a creepy kid. And finally, and this is my favorite part of the casting, is Tina Fey as Ariadne Oliver. From the moment I found out she was cast in this movie, I was like, there's nothing better than this. And one of the reasons is that because Ariadne Oliver is Agatha Christie, I think it's important, and I've seen one other actress play Ariadne Oliver, and that'd be Zoe Wanamaker, who's great, but it just doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like Ariadne Oliver to me. And honestly, Tina Fey does not look like the Ariadne Oliver I have in my mind, because I see Agatha Christie when I do that, but she has this character down. And the thing about Tina Fey is she's not just an actress, she's also a writer. And I think that bringing it together is what makes her Ariadne Oliver so successful. She also plays really well off Branagh's Perot. Those two work really well together. But the real highlight of this, and I'm going to be kind of vague here, something happens in the movie that when it was happening, I was watching it as it happened, and through my mind, I'm like, oh, that would never happen. Ariadne Oliver would never do this in the book. That's wrong. And right after it happens, the Ariadne Oliver has like a little monologue, and Tina Fey starts it, and it's like, it's Tina Fey and her mouth is moving, but Agatha Christie is coming out of her mouth. It's like, oh, it's Agatha Christie. It's wonderful. Like, Tina Fey is the center of this movie, and she is fantastic. She's not the center. I shouldn't say that. She's not the center of the movie. Perot is the center of the movie, but Tina Fey is fantastic as Ariadne Oliver. And it does appear that they're going to be doing more of these Perot movies. Not to be spoiler, but the movie kind of ends in a way that suggests that they will. Please, the love of God, bring Ariadne Oliver back, because she's fantastic. So beyond the actors, this movie is set in Venice in 1947, which is the perfect atmosphere for it. One of the many problems with Hallowe'en Party is it is not at all Halloween-y. Like, it could take place in spring, it could take place in winter, it doesn't matter. It does not feel at all like Halloween. This feels like Halloween. And Venice is such a unique city with its canals and that sort of carnival feeling. Like, there are where people will wear the masks, the Venetian masks, which are kind of creepy when you think about it. So they play up on those aspects of Venice that work really, really well. And kudos to Kenneth Branagh and the set designer to bring that all together. The palazzo where this takes place and it has this dark history, and they do go through the dark history, is really, really chilling. And I just want a little break here, a little FYI. This is not a pro or a con for the movie. This is, if you plan to see the movie, something to keep in mind. This movie takes place over one night, and because it's at night, it is a visually dark movie. If you're in a movie theater, that's fine, because the theater is dark and so you can see everything. But if you choose to see this movie at home, and honestly, there's no reason why you would need to see this movie in a theater. So if you choose to see it at home, be sure to see it when it's dark. There have been times when I have seen movies at home where I watch them on like a Saturday afternoon and it's bright out and I can't see anything on the screen because it's too bright in my environment. This one, you're going to need a dark environment. So that's just an FYI. But the darkness is very creepy, but also the cinematography there's points where you kind of feel like almost like you're on a haunted house ride with it. It's very, very effective, and it really, really sucks you in. And I have a few more thoughts about what I liked, but I'm going to hold on to them for a little bit. And let me talk about what I didn't like. And this first one's kind of a big one, is I figured out the whodidit really fast, very early on in the movie. My husband did as well. After the movie, we talked about our experience with it. So we both figured it out. I'm not usually very good at figuring out who did it. So, I mean, that was disappointing. But I think the other part of it was, while we both figured it out, there were still pieces that were missing as to the how it was done. And not so much the why it was done, but the how it was done. And I don't feel that the screenwriter of this show, well, I don't feel that they played fair here, because I don't, playing fair is the idea that Agatha Christie subscribed to through the Detection Club, that you have to give the reader, if you're reading the book, all the information to solve the crime. Now you can hide it in the text and, introduce it in ways that it might not be noticeable, but the information all has to be there. I can't feel that all the information you needed to figure out the how was there. So I don't feel that they played fair. Now, it could have been in the script they played fair, and then in the cutting room, parts that were necessary were cut. I don't know, but seeing the end part, there were parts like, you know what, they never told us that. I mean, we would never have known that until that. So how did Poirot figure that out? Because he didn't know this information, sort of thing. If you can just go with it, that's probably not going to bother you as much. But I think just because I read so much Christie and I read so many mysteries, that jumped out to me. So that was a big one. And the other issue I had with this movie is that while there are some fantastic actors in this movie, the cast on the whole is not as strong as it is in the other two movies. There are some performances in this, and I'm not going to name them. It's not worth naming. I will name the good parts, but it's not necessary to name the parts that I thought were weak. But I will say there were performances in this movie that I thought it was not a matter of the material being bad. It was that the performer did not live up to the material. And that's just unfortunate. It is what it is. Just isn't that strong of a cast. As I shouldn't say, it's not a weak cast. It is not strong compared to the other two movies. So that comes into a case where you know what these movies are capable of. And in this particular area, this movie didn't live up to that. So those were my complaints about this movie. But on the whole, my experience was very positive. Yes, it wasn't perfect. I did have those issues, but there were far more things that I loved about this movie than things that I didn't like. If I had to give this movie a grade, like I grade my books, I'd give it a B+. I think that's very fair. I will also say, and I'm going to close with these two thoughts, and I think these are the two thoughts that I would like to leave you with about this movie to try and convince you to go see it. And the first is, this may be the third of these movies, but I felt like it was my favorite of I can't say definitively whether it's the best, but I will say it was my favorite. And I will also say this is not a story that Agatha Christie wrote. This is, I think Michael Green is the name of the screenwriter. This is a story that he created in the vein of Agatha Christie. So this is not an Agatha Christie story. But strangely, this is the most Agatha Christie-ish of the three movies so far. This is the one that most captures the spirit of Agatha Christie and her work. And I don't have a problem with that. It's okay. The Agatha Christie estate, they have the Sophie Hannah Perot books and the Marple short stories. They allow these continuation of Christie's characters and stories. That's okay. They're okay with this. They are open to doing as many more movies as they want. And the fact that they were able to capture Christie so much in this story that she didn't even write is fantastic. And I would definitely recommend this movie to anybody. I will say, it is not, I should have included this earlier, and I'm sorry, I tried to avoid forgetting important things, but here's the important thing. This movie is somewhere between a mystery and a horror movie. It is closer to the mystery. I say that because the trailer looks like it's closer to the horror. It is not especially scary. Anything that is scary is like jump scares. It is creepy though. It is a creepy movie, not necessarily a scary movie, but it is also a perfect Christie-ish movie. This is Christie as a genre, not Christie, one of her stories being made. It's her genre being explored. So I do recommend this movie. If you've seen it and you want to discuss it, let me know, because all my contact information is below. I really enjoyed this movie. It's my favorite. I can't wait to see the next time we see this particular Perot come back, and I hope he brings Ariadne all over with him. So if you made it this far, thank you so much. I mostly stayed on plan. Give this video a thumbs up and like and subscribe to my channel. That does really help me. And thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.